Sam, thanks for joining AFL.com.au. You're on the verge of the start of the season. How prepared do you feel? How happy are you with the summer that's been?
Yeah, thanks, Cal. I think every coach sits here at this time of year and fitter than we've ever been, and undefeated, and full of optimism. And the great challenge for every coach and every team is when the challenges come and the performance pressure starts to increase, how we handle that as a group and as individuals. And I think we're well placed. We've had a good summer, and time will tell.
What are the things you've been really searching for in terms of the game style and how you want to play this year?
I've been reasonably consistent, to be honest. Haven't tried to put too many extra strings on the bow at this stage. I think what's really important with our group is to embed confidence in the way we want to play, and we didn't master it last year. And the direction that we want to go is pretty clear for our players, and we just need to keep plugging away, keep working at it, keep getting better. And as we refine and improve, then eventually you get to being able to put some icing on the cake. But for now, very much sticking to the basics of how we want to play and making sure we're well aligned, making sure we are predictable to each other. And once we've embedded that for a little bit longer, we'll start to make further changes. But at this stage, it's really embedding the basics.
You say you can master. How far is it embedded? Can you see the day-to-day influence of it coming through in everything?
I think you probably notice it when new players come into the group and they do things that's a bit, no one else does that.
Yeah.
And this is why, so we want to go away from doing that. Or sometimes, they bring in something that's good as well. So I think when you bring new players into your group, you recognise how far along you are. And I think every club has a unique way that they like to play, and some of them change more than others. And I think what we would like to do is be nice and consistent with the way we play, and have, if you think about the best sides in the competition, everyone knows what they do. And it's just about being able to combat it and making sure it stands up when it really matters, and that's what we're building towards.
8 wins last year. What does progression look like for Hawthorn this year?
Yeah, I think some pleasing parts out of last year was the growth of some of our individual players, and as a collective we built some positivity about the direction we were going. And I think there's a lot of, the Hawthorn fans and members out there probably recognise that this is the direction that we're heading, and we know the personnel will be different, but the style of play and how we'd like to go about it, but we will be similar. And look, I think we saw some emergence of some individual players last year, and the obvious ones being Mitch Lewis or Jai Newcombe or Dylan Moore, and players like that. And I think if we see the continued growth of that group along with some others, that's what success will look like. But certainly no limit or aim as far as wins and losses, particularly not when I'm on camera.
What about off?
No, we don't. To be honest, we don't talk like that. We want to win this many games or that many games. I think you try and win every game that you play, and you set yourself up for as much success as you possibly can have, while keeping one eye on the future.
What did you take stock of personally at the end of your first year in the hot seat?
Yeah, it was interesting. A great learning curve. My first year as a coach, head coach for an AFL club is a big job. Everyone always says that, and I think what has been a little bit easier this year, if you like, is the ability to be able to delegate and much more of what we're after, and everyone understands it. It's not, what does Sam want this, or Sam, do you want that? I think everyone sort of has a bit better feeling about what we're about, and the transparency amongst the coaches and the admin staff about the direction we're going has been really clear. And what that means is that we can delegate much better. If I don't turn up to training, or if I'm not there for the planning session, then it will all be rolling out pretty much exactly the same way. And I think that's meant that I can actually do more coaching this year, which I've enjoyed.
I was going to ask you that. Have you felt a difference in your second preseason because of that ability to, stand back to some degree, but also do some more one-on-one things, or the stuff that you really enjoy about coaching?
Yeah, I don't think it's about what you enjoy. I really enjoy the job and just about every part of it, to be honest. But I think I have been able to do a bit more actual coaching, actual hands-on coaching, whether that be individual craft, how players hold the ball when they're kicking, or when we set up the type of play, type of game, a certain structure. I've been able to coach that a little bit more rather than, coaching the coaches, if you like. So being able to get hands-on with the players has been a little bit easier this pre-season, and Hopefully they'll appreciate it. Maybe they don't like the coach teaching them how to hold the footy when they're kicking, but I think the coaching group's been really, really good and really given them a lot of autonomy to do their best work without me looking over their shoulders.
How many are dual-sided players yet? Have you had?
Well, hopefully all of them. I mean, my philosophy with that is you have to be able to get yourself out of trouble on your non-preferred side. So, we've got some players that are pretty good on the banana, so that's fine. So long as they don't, if they hold up our play because they have a restriction on their skill, that's what I would try to avoid.
Fair enough. Lots been said about the trade period last year. Can you take us back to when you, as a club, and you're obviously heavily involved in those decisions as well, come to the point where, okay, we're going to make these aggressive decisions to move out some experienced players and go about it this way? When did you come to that decision within your own group, and how was that sort of relayed to the rest of the playing group as well?
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit difficult to relay to the rest of the playing group because they're all on leave and you don't see them for a significant amount of time afterwards. But I think, we had a really clear list management strategy. We knew what we were trying to achieve. We know what we believe success is going to require. And while not everything went to plan, I would have loved to keep, Jack Gunston, for instance. But, I think that Tom Mitchell, he'd already been speaking to Collingwood. Collingwood were hoping to get him. So out of that deal, we managed to bring in a 21-year-old inside mid as an early pick a couple of years ago, Cooper Stevens. And, we'd had our eyes on Lloyd Mead for a long time. And really, he was a priority to get to the club. And so we sort of were hit a bit of a roadblock. We couldn't get anywhere. So when the Jager thing came up late, probably wasn't part of our planning, really, to lose Jager. But to get Lloyd in and to also get a little bit of extra draft capital, which turned into Josh Weddle, really. So we sort of think about it as bringing in another first-round draft pick in Josh Weddle, as well as a really good ruckman in Lloyd Meek. It kind of makes sense. Did we go in with the plan of losing all those players? Not necessarily, but it's consistent with the strategy that we have, and I'm really pleased with the group that we've got now, and it really feels like this is the group that's going to go forward together.
There's probably a view externally that there's going to be some short-term pain because of the strategy. Is that confronting for yourself or the group, that might come in the next year or two?
I don't think anyone gets the ladder right, do they? So we all sit here and put our... no one said it this year, actually, but every year for the last 10 years, Geelong have been right about to fall off the cliff, and every year they turn up in the top four. So I think every year the experts will have their opinions, and that's what they're paid to do, and that's what the fans want to hear, and we don't worry too much, good or bad, to be honest. I think, if we're using external opinions too much on what we're trying to achieve, we're probably not in the right seat. So I think what we need to do is play the best footy we can, build the right group, and build what we believe will be a successful era for the club.
Midfield numbers weren't particularly good either with Mitchell and O'Meara last year in terms of clearance and that type of thing. Is this a chance now to reset and get that group together that you want to be in midfield for the next 5 years and beyond?
Yeah, I think the midfield is a really interesting part of the ground. Obviously I played the majority of my career there, and our numbers were really poor. So we're sort of 18th at centre bounces and centre bounce metres and a lot of scoring from stoppages. So we had a lot of trouble around the middle of the ground last year, and I don't think that's and it's probably been for a couple of years we've been like that. And so now with a bit of a rejuvenation in there, it doesn't mean we're going to be better straight away. But David Hale's moved into that role in the middle of the ground, and he's really bonded the boys really well together. And even at training today, he's had 16 players in 4 groups of 4 doing centre bounce work, full competitive. And it was really difficult to see who was the best group. It's a very even group, and what we hope is that there's some real blossoming of talent amongst that group, and we can build something that's pretty special amongst that midfield. And although the names might not be what some of the other clubs have at this stage, we believe that the underlying talent is there. It's just about being able to bond them together in a way that puts the rest of the competition, gives them a bit of respect.
How many years do you think or foresee the list strategy going in that space as well in terms of the draft first? You've already done it for a couple of years. How many more do you feel like you need to go that way before you're happy with your nucleus of 18 to 22-year-olds?
Yeah, I think we're getting to that point now where the way I look at this group, comparing this to this time last year, and this time last year we had some players on the list who we thought are going to be really important for us in the short term, but potentially weren't going to be long-term options for us. Whereas now, I think every player on our list can have success at this club. And, Luke Proust is our oldest player, but, he's pretty much had the same output for the last 3 years. So there's no reason that he can't continue on in that vein. And I look at our group now and think this is the nucleus of players who are going to take us to premiership success in an era that, Hawthorn fans have craved and haven't had since, 13, 14, 15.
Is it daunting in any respect that the era potentially of long rebuilds has changed? The rebuilding and the list management, and I know you're interested like I am, in this space, is changed in terms of the top clubs doing it differently, and it's sometimes taking longer to get up. Is that harder, or do you agree with that view?
Oh, I think if there's a whole group of clubs doing the same thing, it's probably less likely to work. So if you think about the clubs that have rebuilt well, they were the only club doing it at the time. If you have the same strategy as every other club, then you're fighting for the same free agents or the same draft capital or the same whatever talent pool that you can bring. I think us being in a younger spot now, we're able to do some things with things like the salary cap or how contracts are set up and potentially look to free agency over the next couple of years that other clubs can't do because they haven't done it the way we have. And what that does is it gives us a point of difference. And I think when you're building a list and you're building a strategy, if you're trying to do what everyone else is doing, the resources are finite. So I'm really confident in the direction we're going, and I think the list management team has put together a good strategy, and now we get to see if the playing group and coaching group can execute it.
Still about some players that Hawthorn fans want to hear about. How's Mitch Lewis tracking?
So Mitch, unfortunate mishap in such a little innocuous thing that he did, but he's up and down, I would say. So he's running a bit already, but then he got a little bit of swelling in it, so that he has to back off. And if things go really well, I think he's still potentially going to be available for round 4 or 5 as an absolute best case scenario. There's nothing that will speed it up, and any setbacks he has, which is likely, will knock him back a week or 2 weeks or a month or 2 months. So at this stage, it's he just goes day by day and tries to get as much improvement as he can. And we're not going to rush him. He's an important player, and if you get a knee wrong, then it's 12 months out of the game. So we'd like to avoid that. But he's what's been really impressive about him is he's just full commitment. He's out of the track. He's talking with the coaches. He's still doing tape. He's coaching some of the other key position forwards, and he's been really committed to what we're about to do.
How do you set up, not knowing exactly how long it's going to be without him, and who are the pieces that you look to move into that role, as you say, who's really good last year?
Yeah, I think he really came on, and I don't think about really replacing. We've only got one Mitch Lewis, so you don't replace Mitch Lewis. You just try to find a different way that fits within our sustainable system. So you don't want to do something that you just have to throw out in 10 weeks' time. You want to have something that you think can be a way forward, and it's going to create an opportunity, whether that's for Fergus Green or Emerson Jekka, who's gone back into the front half, or Jai Sarong's had a really good summer, rolled his ankle last week, so bit of a setback for him. But there's going to be opportunities for those guys that perhaps weren't going to be there. So you have to look at the positive as well.
I know you've copped the ruck question a little bit already over summer, but how pleased have you been, watching them contest between themselves? It is a sort of specialist position in our game. Ned Reeves, Lloyd Meek, as you mentioned, and also Lynch. How do you see those three fitting in?
Yeah, Maxie Lynch and also Max Ramsden, who's a little bit younger and got a bit of a different skill set as well. I think we look at those 4 rucks and bringing David Hale into the midfield as a midfield coach. A part of that was obviously playing in the ruck. He looks at the game quite differently to most midfielders, looking at it from a tall's perspective. And I think what that's done is given us a bit better grasp of how the ruck craft, not just at stoppage, for instance, but also around the ground, will look. And I think the competition between the 3 older lads that are they're all 24. So Meekie, Reevesy and Lynchy, they've been competing, and sort of one guy gets in front and then another guy gets in front, and they've all got different skill sets as well. So watching them compete's been really good, and Max Ramsden's coming pretty fast, to be honest. he's probably still a little bit green, but it wouldn't be outside the realm of possibility that he's getting into the side and causing some damage, but in a different way. He's obviously not a big physical man like the others, but his running capacity is pretty impressive.
It was this time last year he started to really blossom as a 18, 19-year-old, wasn't it?
Yeah. Mid-season draft. So this was his first pre-season, and he's really actually set quite a benchmark as far as work ethic around the gym, and he's in the gym before breakfast and then in after breakfast and then after training, and so he's one of those guys that's going to leave no stone unturned.
First pre-season, of course, for Cam McKenzie and Josh Weddle. Are you expecting those guys to be right in the frame for real well?
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit early to tell. I think we probably have as many as 32 or 33 that are in the mix for round one, and we'll have an intra-club. We'll have two. We'll play against Geelong and Collingwood over the pre-season. So, I mean, everyone will get a look, and it'll be about performance. And I think in the midfield in particular, it's like every time someone gets a clearance, maybe they're in the team. Every time someone gets beaten, maybe they're going to fall out. And so it's really quite hard, isn't it? It is. And I mean, I've said that to the players. I think some of the other positions are quite set. It's going to be, I think Luke Bruce is going to play in the forward pocket in round one, and there's not really anything different that's going to happen about that. Whereas inside midfielders, I couldn't tell you who's going to be the starting inside midfield mix, and there's any one of, probably 8 players that could start in the centre bounce in round one, and they all are so desperate for that. But what's important that they, they're going to get their opportunity at some stage, whether that's in the next 3 weeks or in the next 3 months, and making sure that they're ready to take those opportunities is what will be important.
Is Josh Ward a little bit behind the 8 ball, given his injury affected summer?
Yeah, it's an interesting one because he's been a little bit less consistent on the track. He's played only one match play at the time of this filming, and he was clearly the best player on the ground in that one piece of in that one training session. So is that enough? Not right now. If we were picking the team right now, he'd be on the edge. But we're going to have plenty more games between now, and we'll give him every chance. And the same way, we want to give every player every chance to put their hand up and make it as difficult as they can for the match committee to pick a final 23.
Has Chad Summerton's always a lot of interest in where he's going to play and splitting that up as well. Obviously, such a dynamic player for you.
Yeah, no, Chad's been really impressive. I've been really pleased with his pre-season. Obviously, we've got a new S&C coach in, and that's brings its challenges because doesn't know everyone's bodies and doesn't know what they are capable of. And Chad's had a really good summer. I think, physically he's in the best shape he's been since he's been at Hawthorn. So we're really pleased. I think his work ethic and what he's been able to produce. He had a week, maybe about 3 weeks ago now, and it was the most output he'd produced in a week for the previous 3 years. So he's in a really good fit spot, and he'll play some game time against Geelong. But I mean, he's definitely going to play, and how he plays and where he plays is going to be up for debate amongst match committee.
Tyler Brockman, do you sort of have a spot for him lined up as well?
Brocky, he's in an interesting position because he had twin girls, and his life is so different to everyone else's on our playing list. He's the only player with kids, and he's got two new little girls, and so his lifestyle is really cool. I mean, I've got twins myself, and it's a challenging time, and so really what we're doing with him is giving him every chance to live a well-balanced life, and he's been really impressive physically. I think he didn't come back, and we didn't want him to come back from Perth before Christmas. And he was training with Subiaco over there, so thank you to them for allowing that, and training with one of our coach's boys, and he did a lot of, and we didn't really know what we were going to get, but he came back in really good shape, really fit. He's got one of those lovable smiles. You can't help but enjoy hanging out with him, and he's put himself right in the frame. He's got right up, and we're going to have some match play on in a couple of days' time, and he'll play a half of that in the good side. So I mean, the probables, if you like. So he'll play a half, and by the same as everyone else, we want to give him a chance to put his name up for round one.
Will Day is always a player that I'm interested in. Love watching him coming through. Obviously, some injury setbacks across his career so far. How's he fighting for a start? And secondly, is he going to be playing on the wing this year? Do you foresee that as being his position? You've got some exciting half-backs already. He's one of those if you use him there. What's the sort of play with Will?
Yeah, I think his first 3 years he trained as a defender. And so what we've done this year is sort of, he can play defence, and we know that he can do that. So we trade him as a midfielder, so inside and outside. And when the push comes to shove as far as selection, I'm not sure where he'll end up. At this stage, he's done most of the pre-season as a midfielder, and knowing that he's got the fullback position of being a defender. I think the thing with his body is he's been pretty consistent this pre-season, and training consistently around the midfield has meant I think that you get hit a little bit more often. And that's suited him, believe it or not. So when you, as a defender, you get hit less but hard, whereas as a midfielder, you're getting hit a bit more often, and he seems to handle that a bit better. So he's been strong. He's in a good position, really.
All right, let's talk about James Sicily then. Where does he take his game? Because obviously last year, stellar season. We're lucky not to be all Australian, but it's probably a debate for another day. How does he take his game another step forward after what he produced last year?
Yeah, it's a great challenge for James. If you think back this time last year, had been out of the game for a year. He was wondering, do I still have it? How good am I going to be? A real nervousness about him. But now, after a really solid season, there's a different mentality for him. And he's handled that really well. I think across the course of the pre-season, he's been a standout in all of the things that you would expect him to be a standout. I think adding some versatility to his game will be important, whether that's playing a bit further up the ground or playing on the opposition's best forward. There's some things that we've worked on over the summer, and depends how other parts of the game work. We know that he can play on the opposition's best, or he can be freed up, or even later in the year last year we pushed him into the midfield with reasonable results. So I think a little bit more flexibility to his role will make him a little bit more potent and a bit more damaging against some certain teams.
I remember actually speaking to you this time last year about him, and you did say that level of uncertainty about how it is to come back missing so much footy and so much time out. Were you sort of surprised in any way about how well it did click for him so quickly, given the severity of such an injury? It's a big injury.
Oh, not really. I think he did the work. So, and I don't mean the physical training, because everyone's going to do that. It's sort of, everyone says, oh, I've never worked harder. It's a kind of an expectation at this level. But what he did was he committed to a lot of other things. He committed to his lifestyle, but he also committed to a lot of coaching. He spent a lot of time with Chris Newman in particular as the backline coach across the course of that season to learn the game and have a much greater understanding. He intuitively has a good feeling for the game, but he really has taken his game to another level with that understanding, and so he's really like another coach on the field. And that having that means that not only can he help the coaching group, but he can assist also with the way the game is being played, and he can make adjustments as an individual that help him be more consistent.
Setterfield, obviously there's a lot of discussion around the AFL investigation into the claims over the past years. Is that something discussed with your players and keep them updated on where it sits so that they hear the news first or hear the updates first coming from yourself or internally in the administration of the club?
Well, to be honest, I don't have any updates, so I can't really pass on any updates. My understanding of it is that the AFL and probably some other bodies are going through a process, and when there is information, it will come to light. But at this stage, I don't have any. So, it's not something we talk about regularly with the players. I've had some conversations about it. It's certainly not taboo. People know that it's happening, and but it's all very much in the background and something that's not front of mind for us.
Last one before we let you go, and thanks for your time. What's the biggest challenge of being a modern coach? You've seen coaches, you've played under a number of coaches, you've done it differently, you've seen different clubs, you've worked your way up to this point, and honestly, last year was your first year in the role. What's the biggest challenge of being a coach and the way that the modern game's played and run and won?
I wish I had a great big insight for you, but I just think it's time and people management, really. You go from an assistant coach where you have 10 or 15 players and a couple of staff that you need to sort of keep an eye on, but all of a sudden you have 43 players and 6 or 8 coaches and 30 football department staff and 70 administration staff and 80,000+ members, and you're the face of a lot of that. And so every time you speak in front of a camera like this, you're representing 80,000 people. And it's not the pressure of it is just par for the course and what you would expect in the role, but making sure every person in all of those positions feels connected to the club and whether that's parents of players or partners and staff and their partners, and making sure everyone feels connected to the club. You've got a big role to play in all of those things. The 2 hours on game day is actually the beautiful bit that you just get to coach a football team. But I think it's the time management and people management to get everyone feeling really connected to your organisation so that you can all go in the right direction. That's the great part of the job, but it is the one that is the most difficult to balance.
So thanks for your time and good luck with the season ahead.
No worries, thanks, Kel.